So good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank you for joining us for this session. My name is Stella Kinyanjui. I'm the country manager of Uni Abroad IDP. We are a student placement organization and an IELTS official testing center. Today we are proud to host the UKVI with their graduate route launch, which they'll be talking about today. So with me, I'll introduce the panelist, and so I'll start with the head speaker, who is Mr. Harry Boot. Mr. Harry Boot is based in New Delhi. He has lived there since 2017 August with his team. Harry's main role is to deliver strategic communication, support, and stakeholder relationship services at the UK Visa and Immigration Service across Europe, Asia, and Africa. He's also joined by Ms. Esther Oluga. Esther is the Regional Communication Manager for UKVI Africa. Esther will not be speaking today. She will have her session on the 1st of July, where she'll be talking to us regarding the new visa updates. So just to thank you for joining us. I know just before we begin, I know it's been a very challenging year with the pandemic hitting us by surprise, and we have basically been forced to adapt and become more resilient in our day-to-day lives. I would like to thank you for joining us, and I'm hoping that after this we'll have a Q&A session. So please put all the questions that you may have on the chat box, and we'll be able to answer them before we end this. So welcome, Harry. Can now take it away.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for hosting me. Good to see you all today. My name's Harry, as was mentioned. I'm based in India, but we work in my team across Asia and Africa to engage international students to explain the visa system to them and hopefully address some of their concerns and explain how it works and make the most out of good policy news, like, for example, the graduate route, which is today. Africa is, of course, a huge focus for the UK, and African students are welcome in the UK, and we want as many of them to continue to choose the UK. We know that you can find many things difficult, including, for example, the red list and the travel situation at the moment, which is just inherently difficult during a pandemic. We can talk more about some of those details in the questions if that comes up, but mainly today we can talk about the graduate route and how we're ensuring that students can, from Kenya, from Nigeria, from across the continent, can access the UK and make the most out of their time there. So I'll run through a rough presentation that gives the overview, but I won't put it on screen. I'll just talk through some of the key points, and then we can go into questions and give about 2/3 or 3/4 of the session to questions, and then the remaining to well, I'll do the presentation, and then we can do the remaining in questions. So as a rough overview, I know many people are joining us from Kenya today. 1,000 students from Kenya joined us, came to the UK in the last year, between April last year and March this year, which was roughly the same as the year before, which is actually really good news because of the impact of COVID. We still saw 1,000 students go. And other countries in Africa, such as Nigeria, actually saw increases last year. So many people from your part of the world are going, and that's something we want to continue. The graduate route is opening on Thursday, so just in 2 days, and it'll be open to students who are inside the UK with a valid student visa. So I'll just do 2 minutes on what having a valid student visa entails, what you have to do that, although Esther, my colleague, will have a session about this on the 1st. For more detail. But the main things you have to think about when applying for a student visa is that you've got an offer from an approved educational institution. That's usually a university, but it doesn't have to be. It's just an institution that's registered and approved in the UK to deliver higher education, and they sponsor you for a student visa. They will give you a CAS if they accept you onto a course, which is a confirmation of acceptance of studies. And on that document, it will say the academic documents and the English language documents that are required to accept you onto that course. So, for example, they might ask for IELTS, and they might ask for an undergraduate degree certificate, for example. Those same documents that are required by the university are required by UKVI when you apply for your student visa. And the reason I specify that is because these documents aren't required for the graduate route application. So the way to think about it, if you're looking at planning your studies to the UK in the next, and then the graduate route application thereafter, you can think about it. Firstly, you have to, they're like a two-part application. Firstly, you do the student visa application in your home country, where you show that you've got the academic documents, you show you've got the English language requirements, you show you've got the financial documents required, and you meet other requirements such as, for example, a TB test and possibly an ATAS test, which is only for certain courses, but it's required. You do all of these requirements, meet all of these requirements from your home country when applying for your student visa, and then you apply for the graduate route at the end of the validity of your student visa after completing your course, at which point you wouldn't need to show English language ability, you wouldn't need to show academic documents, you would just need to show that you'd completed the course. So that's why it's like a two-part thing. So you shouldn't feel like you need to do this later, but by doing it at the first stage, at the student visa stage, you are taking the first step to applying to the graduate route later. So in terms of the graduate route, you may have seen this information already, but to run through the sort of key points of it. The graduate route is available to international students who have completed a degree at undergraduate level or above. So that undergraduate level is a BSc or a BA, typically, 3 years in length, usually in the UK. Above that level is, for example, postgraduate taught or research, those are usually about 1 year, and PhD or doctoral courses, which are anywhere from 2 to 5 years, typically. The graduate route is 2 years if you're at that undergraduate or postgraduate level, and it's 3 years if you're at that that doctoral level. It's not, you have the option to go into that route, or you can switch into other routes. So, for example, if you had a skilled work offer, you could go straight into skilled worker route, which is the route for skilled professionals to stay in the UK. That visa is longer, and it comes with certain requirements, but it does count towards indefinite leave to remain, for example. But the key point is that you could either switch from your student to the skilled worker route, or you could go to the graduate route, or you could go to the graduate route, and then after you could go to the skilled worker route. So you have that flexibility to continue your status in the UK. By doing so, so I mentioned it doesn't count towards settlement. You can switch to other routes, but the graduate route, nor does the student visa count towards settlement. So I know a particular interest for many students is the ability to stay in the UK or wherever the destination is long term. And then after, say, 5 years in the UK's case, you can apply for indefinite leave to remain, which is permanent residency. That's not something that comes with the graduate route. Also, the graduate route is only a one-off stay. It's only a 2-year or 3-year stay. You can't renew it. But as I say, you can switch into other routes and apply that way. On sponsorship, that's another key point, is that you do not need sponsorship for this route. Which means that you do not need your university or your employer to vouch for you or support you in the visa process. The way the application process will work is entirely digital, and it is based on your track record in the UK. That's the academic and the immigration track record. That sounds a bit technical, but basically what it means when you go to the UK, you get you initially have the visa in your passport. You go to the UK and you get a biometric residence permit, which is sort of like an ID card that fits in your wallet. And then when it has a chip in it, it has like a computer chip in it. So when you come to apply for the graduate route, that chip, you'll apply on an app. You'll apply it on the website first, then you download an app. The biometric residence permit can be read by the app, and that will basically give your immigration history. So when you arrived in the UK and how long you've been there and stuff like that. In addition, when you get your CAS, the Confirmation of Acceptance of Studies, you will get a reference number called the CAS reference, and that will be an important number to keep as well, because when you apply for the graduate route, you will enter the CAS reference and you will enter the details from your biometric residence permit, and then that read via the app will be your key information for your graduate route application. So you don't need to enter, for example, you don't need to do any further English language tests, you don't need to have a job, you don't need to meet a minimum salary. Any of that is not required. The main thing is those two information references, the BRP and the CAS reference. which will give the caseworker the information they need. So you don't need a job offer. You can work in any job. You can switch jobs. You can do multiple jobs. You can even be potentially self-employed if that works for that 2-year period or 3 years for doctoral. And the whole point is to give students some flexibility around what they want to try and do. So for some students, this might be to earn some money to pay back loans before they return home at the end of the 2-year period. For others, this might be to try out different industries or try out different roles to gain experience and gain understanding of the UK market before moving into a skilled worker route. Or for others still, they may go straight into a skilled work route. They could stay for 2 years on the graduate route and then switch to the skilled worker route at a later date and stay in the UK longer. The whole point is that we, the British government, are not necessarily going to be saying how to get a job or where to get a job. We are saying we've created a new 2-year route, post-study option that gives students the chance, the time to gain that experience, earn some of that money, and continue their stay in the UK and make the most of it. I think those are some of my key points, just in terms of a couple of key information questions. I know we'll go into that soon. The fee, it's a separate application, so the graduate route won't be included in the. It's not automatically part of your student visa. You get your student visa, you go to the UK, you complete your course, and you apply for your graduate route during the final period of your student visa. So it's a separate application that you make inside the UK. It costs £700, that's the fee, regardless of whether it's 2 years or 3 years. And in addition, you would pay the immigration health surcharge at the full rate. Students pay the reduced rate, which is £470 a year. Graduates will pay this full rate, which is £624 a year. So as a rule of thumb, for example, if you're going for a 2-year graduate route, the fee will be £700 and the immigration health surcharge will be £624 a year. So for 2 years on the graduate route, that'll be a cost of about just under £2,000 for immigration health surcharge and the visa fee. The only other thing to say before we go into questions, I think, is that if you've been studying remotely due to COVID-19 restrictions, that doesn't rule you out of the graduate route. You will still have the option to apply for it. Currently, the rule is whether you started last autumn or in the spring, so courses starting in, September 2020 or January or February 2021, you will still be eligible to apply for the graduate route as long as you're in the UK with a valid student visa by 27th of September of this year. So if you've been studying remotely for the majority of your course, the last 6 months or however long, you can still apply for the graduate route, but you should think about getting to the UK with a valid student visa whilst you're by the 27th of September. So to make sure you don't miss out. I know many countries in Africa, like in the Gulf and in South Asia, are currently on the UK's travel red list, which requires hotel quarantine. We can talk more about that if required, although it'll be covered in later events. Some students will have to go into hotel quarantine. We can't give plans on when particular students' time might change, but we would just encourage students to make their own plans based on the information that they have to be there with a valid student visa by the 27th of September. We hope as many students as possible get the graduate route. We know tens of thousands will be applying in the first few months, and either if you're looking to apply when you're completing a course this summer, or if you're looking to apply for a student visa this year and the graduate route visa next year or the year after, best of luck. Continue coming to events like this, and we will hopefully see you in the UK soon. So thank you for that. I hope that was useful, and happy to go into questions now.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you for that presentation. So we'll move into our Q&A session. If you have any questions, please put them on your comments on Facebook or Instagram, or on the Q&A section on Teams. So we have a few questions coming in. One of the questions I think you've answered when just on your final points, when some students were asking if they started online in September 2020, can they still be eligible to apply for the graduate route?
Yeah, so to confirm, yes, they would be eligible as long as they're in the UK with a valid student visa by 27th September. So hypothetically, if you're on a master's, if you start in September, you might complete your studies in June, about now, but you could still go to the UK as long as you get that valid student visa. So the two things, you must have the student visa. You can't, for example, get a visit visa or anything like that. So you must have a student visa and you must be in the UK. So as long as you meet those two requirements by the 27th September, you should be able to apply for the graduate route.
Good. Will students have to do a new application for the graduate route?
Yeah, it will be new. I'm sure IDP colleagues will know, but many students will also know, when you get a student visa, you get it for the length of your course plus 4 months. That's like the single leave status, as we call it. So, for example, if your course is 1 year, you'll get a student visa for 1 year and 4 months. The ideal time to apply for the student visa is between the course end date and the visa end date. So in that 4-month period between course and visa end date. That's the best time to apply. It's a new application. It has to be inside the UK. But as I say, the new thing about that is that it's fully digital, this new process. So you'll apply online, go through an app to submit your information, and the vast majority of you won't need to actually go to a visa centre. It'll just be all be online. But but it is a second process at the end of your student visa.
Thank you, Harry. Another question is on settlement. Will the route count towards settlement?
No. So the graduate route doesn't count towards settlement, and nor does the student visa route. So, for example, if someone were to go on a 1-year course, a master's, for example, and then do a 2-year post-study graduate route, they would have 3 years in the UK, but none of that time would count towards permanent settlement, the indefinite leave to remain that I mentioned earlier. If they wanted to be entitled to indefinite leave to remain, that permanent residency, they would move on to another route. I mentioned skilled worker, that's the professionals route. If you're, say, working for a company, there are other routes such as startup and innovator, which are visa routes to create your own company. And there are certain routes such as global talent visa, which are particularly aimed at certain sectors like tech and science, so people who are particularly able in those sectors. So most people choose the skilled worker route, that's the largest number, but there are other routes as well. So to return to my example, you could have 1 year as a student, 2 years as a graduate route, then you'd have to have an additional 5 years on a skilled worker route or another route before you apply for permanent residency after that 5 years. So in that, you'd have 8 years in the UK, but 5 years of eligible time for permanent residency. That might be what many people do. But the graduate route itself doesn't count towards permanent residency.
Are there particular courses that one needs to have completed in order to qualify for the graduate route?
In terms of subject, no, there are no particular courses. We know students from across the world do lots of different courses. It'll vary from country to country, but there are no specific courses whatsoever. It's not about the subject matter, it's about the level of the course. So it has to be at undergraduate level or above. For example, some courses which are not full master's qualifications, for example, legal qualifications or accountancy qualifications, are eligible for the graduate route. Those are like postgraduate level courses, but are not masters. You should check with if you think you're in that group, check with your educational provider. But for the most part, it will be undergraduates or postgraduate courses. It's about that level of course and doing it in an institution which is offering student visas. So as long as you get a student visa to study in the UK with an institution, you should be eligible for the graduate route after that. But it has to be at least undergraduate level. But it doesn't matter really what the subject matter is at all.
Well, thank you. I can't hear you. Another question, will universities be expected to act as sponsors for those students on the graduate route after they graduate?
No, they won't have to at all. And that's actually one of the strongest things about the route. Many prospective students will know many of the UK visas are about the sponsorship model, which basically means you need the employer to offer you a job, commit to paying you a certain salary, and all of that, which is still the model for the longer term, the skilled worker route I mentioned, for example. But the graduate route is like comes place before that. Neither the university nor the employer will have to sponsor you at all. You will have to complete your course, and your university will provide information to that. So, for example, I mentioned the CAS number. When the student applies, they'll put their CAS number into the app, and they will say they will just submit that, and then the Home Office worker will look at the record supplied by the university. University will say, yes, this student attended this course and completed it, and that is the amount of information that's required. They do not need to actively sponsor you and say, we are going to support the student. It's not required at all. Likewise with the employer. So, for example, many students, certainly when I graduated, both UK-based and international, would work in one job where they were gaining experience, say an internship, and another job where they were gaining money. So like 2 jobs to balance out those 2 requirements. That would be possible under the graduate route. So you wouldn't need to be sponsored for either of those jobs. You could do both of those jobs at the same time. That flexibility is possible, and you wouldn't need sponsorship at any point during the graduate route from your university or from your employer.
Okay. Is there any specific work students can do with graduate route?
No, there are no specific requirements of the graduate route, which is a good thing. I mean, again, everyone's individual situation will change, but if someone wants to work, say, in a call center or a coffee shop for a few months before going into a graduate scheme with a particular employer, or like I said, they need to do an internship, but then they need to boost their income via an additional job. That is all fine. Equally, they can work in any industry as long as there aren't any other rules on that. So there's no requirement on any industry or any type of work. It's just you have the freedom to go find these jobs. There is competition for these jobs. So best of luck with that. But the main thing is that you've got this time as a student. You're going to have 2 extra years to find these jobs, try these things out, and have that opportunity to do that in the UK without having to go through the sponsorship system, for example. So, yeah, it's a lot freer and a lot more flexible.
Okay, that's good. We have another question from the audience. When applying for the graduate route visa, can I include my dependents who have been on the dependent visa during my studies?
Yes, in that situation, yes, you can include your dependents. It's an important point, so I'll go into a little more detail. Dependents on the student visa can then apply for the graduate route dependent as well. However, you can't have new graduate dependents on the route. So in relation to the question, if you had your husband, wife, child with you as a student dependent, they could also apply for the graduate dependent inside the UK. However, if you completed a course in the UK, moved on to the graduate route, you couldn't then bring a dependent over directly onto the graduate route from your home country or from anywhere else. So yes, student dependents can become graduate dependents, but new dependents can't become graduate dependents.
Thank you, Harry. Just going through the questions. Do I need ATAS for the graduate route?
No, not for the graduate route, no. You would not need the ATAS certificate, which is, for reference, is the Academic Technology Approval Scheme certificate. This is a scheme for specific courses, for example, aerospace engineering, where that certificate is required. Most courses don't require it, but if they do, you'd be asked for it at the student visa stage, so before you go to the UK when you're applying for your student visa. Assuming that you've got your student visa and then completed your course, you wouldn't need the ATAS again for your graduate route. It would only be at the student visa stage that you would use the ATAS certificate.
Someone is asking, can you apply for the graduate route when you're outside the UK, or you have to be in the UK, as you say, by the 27th of September in order to apply?
Sorry, we lost somebody.
Hello? Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Yeah.
You can hear me? Sorry for
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Just for guests, Harry, just for the guests who have joined us a bit late, maybe you can just have a summary of what the graduate route is.
Yeah. Cool. Sure. So in 30 seconds, the graduate route is a new post-study work option, immigration product that can that students who complete a course with a valid student visa in the UK will be able to apply for from Thursday. It opens on Thursday. It's for 2 years for most students, 3 years for doctoral students, and it gives unsponsored work rights